Good morning, St. Anne's and St. Mary's. I'm coming to you today to update you on the partnership between our two parishes. This video is accompanied by a letter in the e-news from myself and the Wardens of St. Anne's and St. Mary's. There are no major announcements or changes today. We just want to keep you updated on where we are in our discernment with one another between the two parishes. For a little background, in early 2022, leaders from St. Mary's and St. Anne's began discussing a partnership between the two parishes. At first, this discussion centered on clergy leadership. Neither St. Mary's nor St. Anne's can currently afford a full-time priest. With a national clergy shortage in the Episcopal Church, recruiting and retaining clergy is difficult, even for full-time positions. And it's even more difficult to recruit and retain part-time clergy. After some conversation at the warden and vestry level, and with the approval of Bishop Clark, I began serving at St. Mary's in August of 2022, a little over a year ago, which was a little over 4 years after I began my position half-time at St. Anne's. As the conversation between St. Mary's and St. Anne's continued, its scope expanded. This is not just about me. This is not just about the clergy. It is about the future of our congregations. The wardens of the two churches and I began discussing whether there could be more shared mission and resources between the two churches, strengthening the presence of the Episcopal Church in McHenry County. Small congregations, as you well know, are often burdened by the cost of doing business, so streamlining operations and sharing resources can be quite helpful. Beyond the cost of doing business, though, the question came to the fore. Can we better serve our communities by working together or by continuing separately? In early 2023, the vestries of St. Anne's and St. Mary's entered a 3-year covenant. The covenant established a formal relationship between the two churches while they share a priest, that's me, and while they deepen their relationship with one another. The 3-year covenant was intended to be a bridge as the two parishes determine their long-term relationship with one another. And in 2023, as we began to live into the covenant, the leaders of the congregations also began to continue looking toward the future. From the beginning, a basic assumption of the conversation was that St. Anne's and St. Mary's would continue to maintain congregations in Woodstock and in Crystal Lake. This was a part of the original memorandum of understanding between the wardens and continues to be our operating assumption. Though we cannot predict the future, it is our belief that God calls us to ministry in both of these communities and beyond. Another operating assumption is that the partnership cannot distract us from our primary purpose. The mission of the church is not to save itself. The mission of the church is to restore all people to unity with God and each other in Christ. This is why some aspects of our partnership, especially logistical ones, are carried out behind the scenes, so as not to distract from the primary ways we carry out this mission. Worshiping God and serving God's people. That's what we are about. So what's next? There are many advantages to the covenant between St. Anne's and St. Mary's. We've had some successes along the way. St. Anne's and St. Mary's have shared Holy Week services for 2 years now, though our Easter Vigil, which is shared, is a long-standing tradition. And our evening services with a combined choir have been lovely and powerful. Our vestries have been meeting together every other month in 2023, beginning to work more closely together. Social events have included both congregations, and they've been well attended, and we are beginning to approach outreach efforts together. So there have been some successes. And of course, there are challenges to the covenant. There have been schedule changes and adjustments along the way. There are feelings of loss amid the change. Some, for example, are challenged by services which don't include Holy Eucharist. Others by the dashing back and forth of the priest on Sundays. This is not, of course, a perfect arrangement. Some other churches that have been in long-term partnerships with one another, usually centered on sharing clergy, have a similar agreement to St. Anne's and St. Mary's, and they stop there. That's as far as they go. Why are we considering further integration? The Wardens and I believe that fuller integration of the parishes will better enable us to carry out our mission. We're taking as a model for a future direction 2 parishes in Maryland, Ascension and St. George's, that became a single multi-site parish named Resurrection Parish. The 2 local congregations, still known as Ascension and St. George's, maintain 2 centers of worship in 2 different towns. Sound familiar? They function, though, as a single church, a single clergy team, a single staff, a single vestry. This frees up energy away from administration and frees up energy for the actual work of the church, the mission of the church, serving God's people. St. Anne's and St. Mary's have a similar opportunity ahead of us. Even while we maintain separate congregations, separate centers of worship in Woodstock and Crystal Lake, we can begin to think strategically together about our future. Further combining the administration of the 2 parishes can free up some energy for our mission, and sharing clergy can help insulate us from the clergy shortage while also saving important financial resources better deployed elsewhere. Most importantly, we can share our mission and together serve God's people in McHenry County. Becoming one church in 2 locations won't magically solve all our problems, of course, and we do still have questions to answer. How do we manage 2 properties, one of which is still mortgaged and one of which is quite large? How do we manage those without our properties distracting us from our mission? How do we continue to build connection and trust between St. Anne's and St. Mary's? What is our relationship with St. Paul's, the other Episcopal church in McHenry County? Can we grow in closer relationship with them? How do we grow and even thrive in a rapidly changing world? Still, it's our belief that we can answer these questions better together. Over the fall and winter, you'll hear more from us about what it would be like to be one church in 2 locations. Later this fall, we'll host congregational conversations to say more and to hear from you. In the meantime, the vestries will be discussing this at our monthly meetings, and I will continue to connect with the bishop's office. We also hope to host a Zoom forum with the rector of Resurrection Parish, that parish that worships in 2 different locations, so that he can give us a sense of what their experience has been, what's worked and what hasn't. In the meantime, we keep the main thing the main thing. We worship. We care for one another. We care for our neighbors. We remember that the mission of the church is to restore all people to unity with God and each other in Christ. We keep our attention on Jesus and dedicate ourselves to following him. As the leaders in the church, we are grateful for the way that the people of St. Anne's and St. Mary's have responded with grace, patience, and love for one another amid the changes wrought by COVID, changing patterns of worships, leadership transitions, and now a partnership. We are honored to walk with you, and we look forward to the discernment ahead as we consider where God is calling us, how God is calling us to be the church in McHenry County. Peace be with you, and we look forward to more conversation.